Hi everyone, welcome back to this week's market review. Pat here, back off holiday, taking a look at the market, lots to discuss and lots to catch up on this week. Hope everyone has been trading well and has been avoiding the bleed mostly. Just wanted to let you know that the group currently has a 20% sale on. You can click the link at the top of the description to get access to the group. 20% off Discord right now. Perfect way to set yourself up for a really nice Q4. As we move into the end of Q3 and Q4, I'm expecting some fantastic price action from crypto market and along with altcoins. But let's jump right into it. We got plenty to discuss. Taking a look at the crypto market, as you can see, basically at the top of the tab this is everything I'm going to discuss today, and I'll probably go off topic a little bit and talk about some other things, but mostly touching on crypto and traditional markets elsewhere. So yeah, market has been bleeding. I don't really want to discuss what's happened. These reviews I want to focus on the week ahead. I want to focus on the plan for the week. And, you know, if you are a regular viewer of this, then you know that we always set out a plan for the week. And usually in the Discord, we follow through with the plans set out in the YouTube market reviews. So I always touch on the dollar. I think the dollar is very important, especially with the way the Fed are talking at the moment and the potential rate cuts going into September. You know, with traders pricing in 100% probability of rate cuts, you know, we can be assured that if we do go into September and there are no rate cuts, we could look at a move down across the market. But right now things are looking promising. As long as the dollar continues to trade below 199, I think we can look at continuing to trade lower, down to the mid 90s. Similar move to what we done back in 2020 and 2021, and then also 2017 and 2018. As long as price can continue to stay below 99, I think we have a good window of opportunity left, at least 100 days of this cycle before we start to see a bottom from the dollar. So with Bitcoin continuing to rally into Q4 and all the way into December and into 2026. So something I discovered was taking a look at the others chart. When we pair the others chart against the dollar and BTC setup, so we can see that on the breakdown of the dollar in both May 2020 and April 2017, if we pair that against the others chart, which is the total market cap excluding the top 10 market caps of, so basically altcoins, we can see how during this period altcoins went into a very bullish trending period. Since the dollar has broken down, we are yet to see this sort of move from altcoins, right? Altcoins have been trading very poorly. You know, you have to be very selective of what you are trading at the moment. But overall, I do expect there to be a very good period of altcoin trading and a bullish period of altcoin trading. And, you know, this is partly due to the fact that dominance has been so strong, which I'll talk about in a second. But dominance has been trading really well, which is one of the main reasons why altcoins have been suffering. And recently we've started to see some huge inflows in Ethereum, which has led to dominance start to take a bit of a turn. We can see that the dominance has now broken a 1,000-day uptrend and falling below 60%. I think it's going to be really important to see how this 60% region reacts for dominance. If Bitcoin dominance does trade into 60% and we start to see a rejection, then we could get a 2021-like downside move. Maybe not something as aggressive as this, but at least we could see dominance start to take a move lower, especially if Ethereum continues to get the inflows that it has from, you know, ETFs and other large whales that have been buying. It could lead to a very good period of altcoin trading where we see the others chart extend to it as high as like sort of 1 billion, at least 1 trillion, sorry, and at least as high as 900 billion. This is something to think about here as we compare, you know, the dollar and Bitcoin to prior cycles, right, and what we've seen. And obviously, in no way do I think this cycle, like in alt season, is going to be any similar to last cycles. I think we are in different times. Majors are more dominant than ever, and there isn't enough liquidity to cover all altcoins like we done in the past prior alt seasons, where everything just went up in unison, and things will pop off here and there and things will die here and there, and you have to be really selective what you're looking at. So that's the current outlook for the next few months, right? I only like to touch on the higher time frame here and there. Mostly these market reviews want to be focusing on the intra-week and intra-month side of things. So to quickly touch on my rough outlook right now, before we go into a bit of a deeper analysis, I'm currently looking for a bit of reversal on BTC and ETH into these regions. I think this sort of current market price all the way down to 4,200 on ETH is a really important place to hold. And equally on Bitcoin, anywhere from sort of 110 down to 106 is a really important place to hold, at least for a bounce and a move back higher. I'm pretty sure if we fail to hold these green boxes that I've highlighted, we're going to trade much lower and have a much deeper pullback before Q4. You know, if let's say we don't bounce here and we continue to trade lower, I could see us trading in lower into September before bottoming and bouncing into Q4. You know, as I've been saying time and time again, I don't expect a cycle top to come any earlier than October. So sort of bottoming into Q3 and bouncing into Q4 is a good idea if we don't hold into this region. Same for ETH, right? If ETH does not hold this 4,400 to 4,200 region, I could see it trading as low as sort of 38 to 3,600 before truly bottoming. And just because we trade down here doesn't mean that we're necessarily topped. I think this can still be a healthy pullback in the sort of grand scheme of things. A 20% pullback off the highs is nothing that we're not used to, right, on Bitcoin. We're used to it pulling back this sort of percentage, right? This was I think like a 15 or 13% move down. And then this was obviously much larger, 33%. And then we had that pullback there, which was like 80%. So sort of 20%. Right now we're on that 12, 13%, and 20% is not out of the ordinary, and would remain a healthy pullback. So 106 is important because we have that 2025 Q2 value area high. We should continue to hold here for continuation. We're also currently trading around the developing yearly value area high, which, you know, we can see does sort of like break from time to time. We don't have to specifically hold it, you know, and bounce from it to a T. So we could trade a little bit under here before legging up and maybe failing to break below there. But anywhere from this sort of like developing yearly value area high all the way down to 2025 Q2 value area high and the June value area high, I think is an important place to hold. Otherwise, like I said, we could be in store for a move back down towards that developing yearly VWAP and much lower prices, even back down towards this 2025 Q2 VWAP, right? The naked VWAP of Q2 last year, right? If we fail to hold this Q2 value area high and we accept back inside, there's a good chance we're going to trade towards that VWAP, right? So this is kind of why 106 is an important place for me to hold on Bitcoin. Also, you know, if we lock in a range deviation, like a range low deviation, and we can put in a reclaim back above 112k, that could be a really nice setup for continuation back higher to new and fresh highs on Bitcoin. You know, until we get a sort of a reclaim of 112, I do think we are at risk of rolling over, right, and looking in a bearish retest. But ideally we do a similar thing where we deviate and reclaim and we push to fresh highs, right? And if we don't reclaim, then we do look to playing out that scenario like I discussed, of a much deeper sweep into September before bottoming and rallying into Q4. So this week I am looking for triggers on Bitcoin to get long. As of right now, I don't really have anything. It could be something as simple as a sweep and a trap below, or like a good drop into the June value area high into 106k with a nice trap. Equally, if I don't get a trigger down here, I'm happy to long a reclaim of the prior monthly value area low, right? Or you could just use the daily range low. A reclaim back above 112, 400-ish is a really good point for Bitcoin to reclaim, right? You could just use the lower time frame for something like that. If we sort of bounce back above 112k, look at being a buyer back down towards that 112,500 region and look for a move towards range highs, right? So for now, that's kind of the outlook. Reclaim 112,500 for a move back higher. Otherwise, looking for a sweep a bit lower into 106, which, like I said, was a must-hold region for Bitcoin. Otherwise, we're going to trade much lower. Still buying Bitcoin daily right now. I don't expect, you know, us to officially break down, and I don't think this is a cycle top personally. I will continue to buy into the end of August, and then next week we'll just decide on how I'm going to trade. If the market looks like it wants to continue to trade lower, then I'll consider continuing to buy into September with a target of selling in Q4. So yeah, in terms of ETH, this is also a pretty important place to hold. The developing monthly VWAP. Also, we have the Q4 2021 value area high here, and also the developing quarterly value area high. I think, you know, as I discussed, this region is quite important for ETH to hold. We have this sort of like daily demand area right now, and then we're kind of stuck below the prior weekly VWAP, which if we do get back above, that could be a nice place for some continuation this week. Overall, again, looking for some continuation triggers from here and down to 4,200, like I said, down towards this prior weekly value area low, and also the developing monthly VWAP. If we take a look at like sort of like standard structure from ETH, we can see it's done similar setup time and time again. Range, deviation, reclaim, leg up, right? Range, deviation, reclaim, leg up. Range, deviation, reclaim. Potentially, you know, we're looking at a leg up here. You know, if we don't leg up from here, then, you know, assume that we're probably going to go back to chop, or even if we don't hold that 4,200 region like we've discussed, right? It's important to hold this 4,200 region, and we could be destined for prices to go down to like 3,700 again and test this prior range value area. But for now, I think this structure looks quite good. Sort of this over under setup, inverse head and shoulders, whatever you want to call it. I think it looks like quite a nice price action for ETH for some continuation. So again, looking for some triggers this week for a long on ETH. I'm expecting prices to continue higher and maybe at least go for like 5k again. You know, ETH broke all-time high on the weekend, so it's no surprise that it rolled over, right? I wouldn't expect price to break out and sustain an all-time high breakout on a weekend personally, especially on something like Ethereum with a as a major like that. So the rejection was expected really, because you also had a bunch of open interest being added into the highs. We can see on the range high break on a Sunday, the amount of OI that was being done and the aggression that was being done into the highs. So I'm not surprised that we did eventually start rejecting them. You know, we took out that full news pump move that we had from last week. So yeah, if we take a look at the sort of order flow in terms of imbalance, it's been pretty imbalanced move down. It's been okay, but definitely not as imbalanced as I'd like to be. It has traded back towards this weekly naked POC, so overall a pretty nice place to bounce for Bitcoin. You know, if we don't bounce soon, I'm pretty sure we're going to go for that 106 area, which is my next place. I'm going to look for a long trigger. But yeah, I think it's good to look for some intra-week move up. Classic Monday dump into Tuesday turnaround price action from majors. And that's enough about majors. Going to quickly touch on some altcoins now. All right, on to discuss some altcoins quickly. If you remember from a couple weeks ago, my discussion on Bitcoin pairs, I think it's worth keeping an eye on strong Bitcoin pairs, ones with like long-term support, like we can see here from ADA. This sort of like almost 2,000 days support on the ADA Bitcoin pair. And you can see almost every time that the ADA Bitcoin pair moved into this or like monthly support, the ADA chart performed really well, especially with the way dominance is looking right now. And we could definitely see some relief from some of these long-term Bitcoin pairs. So, you know, ADA also has quite a nice chart, like breaking out here on the weekly. You know, breakouts are very subject, obviously, but the daily put in quite a nice reclaim as well. So something I actually am in spot of right now, but will be, you know, I bought 50%, I think, back end of last week, but willing to add or / exit if we fail to hold this sort of like 0.83 region. I think this is important to see ADA bounce here and see some continuation. Obviously, it's going to be down to the way majors trade this week as well, whether I'll continue to hold it. I don't think a lot of alts are in a good spot for spot right now. At least you have to be very, very picky with the ones you want to buy spot in. I think holding long-term spot in altcoins is just a death trap, and I continue to think it's a very strong traders market right now. You're better off being a investor in majors and a trader in altcoins, unless you have some clear narrative or strong trend around them. So yeah, ADA is kind of one of my only altcoin spot positions right now, which I will continue to consider over the coming week. But yeah, just based on the fact that this ADA chart is sort of like putting a nice bounce from this long-term support, the Bitcoin pair, and I want to discuss TRB as well, because this is something I'm also considering an entry, a 2,000 day support for TRB, which I had my alerts get set off overnight. I'm moving into this area again, and we can see historically TRB has traded really well every time we've moved into this long-term support for it. So trading back into this area again, I think is a good place to look for some reversal on TRB. I'm not in it yet, but I'm considering an entry. Best to see how we trade around this daily level. Something like a reclaim, you know, as if it reclaims here and gets back above this daily level, it could be a good entry based on the fact that the TRB Bitcoin pairing is moving to a long-term support. Another Bitcoin chart that looks pretty good is the BERA Bitcoin chart. BERA has been strong today. I'm going to keep an eye on it for an entry, but the daily potentially breaking from this slight lower range down here, and had like a nice double bottom. If BERA Bitcoin flip here, good chance it can start to leg up. The BERA chart is also really strong, up 16% on the day. It's definitely worth keeping an eye on, as it's one of the strongest L1s right now. We can see it compared to all the other L1s in the market. It's a clear leader, along with hype. Looks pretty good. But BERA, this is a good chart to keep an eye on for the week, especially if the market starts to move up. I definitely think this could be a top performer. Another coin I've got my eye on is Rats. This is a Bitcoin meme coin. As of right now, meme coins don't look great, but this is locking in quite a nice daily reclaim. I'm considering an entry for this just based on the fact that it reclaimed, and the lower time frame looks pretty good. If it can flip 0.02, good chance we can see a breakout from it. I'll try and take a breakout trade on this, for a 16-17% move. The last thing I want to discuss is some of these Sol memes. They are pretty close to collapsing. If we take a look at Farcoin, for example, kind of lost this long-term support area and now is trading into what can be seen as a gap. I'm pretty sure if the market doesn't bounce soon, a lot of these Sol coins are gonna gap lower, like 30% back down to those range breaks from April. Like Farcoin is one, Popcat is another one. You can see lost a pretty key support area here, as is at risk of breaking down lower. Like Momentum isn't looking too great either, and Mudeng is another one we can see with a big gap below. If it starts to lose this support, it's going to look at gapping back down like 50-60%, all the way back down to like May, April levels, like similar to Farcoin. So I'd just be cautious in some of these Sol memes. I don't know, I wouldn't go trying to chase these just based on the fact that a Sol is looking kind of toppy, bit of a 3 drive, and Sol memes have this massive gap below. And maybe if they start to put in a good reclaim, like something could save them. But right now, I wouldn't mind looking for a bearish retest on something like a Farcoin to get short. Look for like a move like this as a bit of a breakdown trade and a hedge against maybe some spot that you have. But yeah, quite a long episode today. Discussed a lot, and I actually had some other things I wanted to discuss, but I don't want to run over. Overall, looking for some reversal this week. I think it's pretty important that majors continue to hold into these regions that I have marked. Otherwise, we're going to probably trade much lower until September and bottoming in September towards a rally in Q4. If dominance continues to break down, maybe we can start to see a move from others, as long as majors remain strong. But right now there isn't a massive amount of buying happening. Structure remains quite weak on Bitcoin, and I wouldn't go knife catching personally unless we get like a good trap into like sort of 106. I wouldn't go knife catching this. Wait for either that reclaim above 112 and move up, or like I said, a trap into sort of like 106. But right now this sort of like bounce and bleed is not price action you want to necessarily try and like knife catch. It's a recipe to blowing your account up. So yeah, I hope this episode was useful. Quite a long one. Like I said, 20% sale off in the Discord, and I hope to see you guys around. I'm live on Twitch on Friday. You can check out my socials, and my Twitch is linked there. So I'll hopefully see you guys there. Bye bye. I'll catch you on Friday.